Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Frayed Truths in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 31. The kunai being knocked out of his hand feels like a bucket of ice water being dumped over his head. Sasuke presses his fingers against the cut on his throat, feeling horrified. What did I almost just do? It feels like his mind has emerged from a deep fog. Like he's woken up from a fever dream. But there's no time to properly realize his own actions, because Orochimaru is standing on a tree branch above him. Half a second later, and I would be. His hands shake. He shoves his attempt at suicide from his mind, forcing himself to focus on the current situation. Relax, Orochimaru says, when he sees the way Sasuke falls into a defensive stance. I just came to talk. There's no need for violence. Sasuke's neck stings from the shallow line his kunai made. His left hand hurts from the rock. The curse mark on his shoulder burns, and he glares up at the snake with narrow eyes. Talk, he says skeptically. You mean like when you sent your lackeys to kidnap me while I was in a coma? There isn't any killing intent exuding from the man now, but Sasuke refuses to lower his guard even a fraction of an inch. He can still sense the extreme power radiating from him. Whether this is because they are connected through the curse mark, or because he is just that powerful, Sasuke doesn't know. Orochimaru won't kill him. But his teammates aren't too far away, and Sasuke knows he won't hesitate to kill them. Orochimaru smiles. It's not a pleasant expression. That was a bit underhanded of me, wasn't it? Still, no harm was done. My teammate was nearly killed. And one of my people was killed. But you don't see me holding a grudge. Sasuke clenches his jaw. The curse mark on his shoulder burns. He can see it flaring, black marks turning the color of flames, but the seal surrounding it contains it. It's barely visible, poking out from the collar of his shirt. Orochimaru's gaze flickers to it, and his mouth twitches down slightly. In a fluid motion, he leaps from the tree. Sasuke jerks back as the man lands in front of him, but his back hits the tree trunk behind him. He no longer has his kunai, but his hands are ready, prepared to use a jutsu. Orochimaru is an entire foot taller than him. He towers over him, casting him in his shadow. That mark on your shoulder is hurting you, isn't it? It's because of that wretched seal that's been placed around it. Power like that isn't meant to be contained. Sasuke resists the urge to reach up and touch the mark. Anger swirls inside him, trying to push him into action. He holds off his desire to attack. It would be stupid to charge at a man like this without plan or thought. He remembers last time he ran into a fight blindly. He can still feel the fingers around his throat, the voice against his ear. You're still too weak. I never asked for this power, Sasuke tells him. There's nothing great about it. All it does is hinder me. Orochimaru reaches out, pale fingers brushing Sasuke's neck. The mark flares again, and Sasuke tries to flinch away. The trunk of the tree is still at his back. That's because it's only in its first state, the Sunin says. There is a second state, you know. Against his will, Sasuke feels his interest peak. What do you mean? Well, Sasuke-kun, that's privileged information. But if you were looking to advance your power, know that I have the means to do so. Sasuke feels himself shiver. He hates the position Orochimaru has him in. The man hasn't made a move against him, but the way he has him boxed against the trunk of the tree behind him leaves Sasuke feeling trapped. This is clearly intentional. Sasuke feels no real draw toward the power Orochimaru is offering, not anymore. The purpose of gaining power was all to kill Itachi, and that doesn't matter anymore. Nothing matters anymore. Sasuke swallows past the heavy wave of hopelessness that washes over him. He levels Orochimaru with a glare. I don't care about anything you're offering. I don't need anything from you. Is that so? Is that why I caught you out here, so miserable and hopeless that you were about to put an end to your own existence? Sasuke's breath stutters, not just at the reminder of what he almost did, but that Orochimaru had witnessed it. That wasn't. Orochimaru raises a hand to stop him. It doesn't matter. The specifics of your angsty teenage dilemmas don't interest me. What does interest me is how we can be of use to each other. Sasuke narrows his eyes. There is nothing Orochimaru could offer him. He knows exactly what the man wants from him to possess his body in order to gain the power of the Sharingan. He has no reason to hand himself over to him. I told you that there's nothing I want from you, he says. I won't go with you. What could you possibly offer me? The truth, Orochimaru says, his eyes glinting. About your big brother. Sasuke freezes. What, he says. He mind stops. Almost against his will, he feels all of his focus realign at the words, his attention drawn in like a magnet. The truth? What are you talking about? He demands. What truth? Orochimaru reaches out with a smirk. He twists a strand of Sasuke's hair around his finger. Poor little child. Surrounded by so many lies and deceptions. You've never been given an honest word in your entire life, have you? Sasuke slaps the hand away, his heart pounding. Speak plainly, he demands. Just what do you mean? Your older brother has been lying to you, Orochimaru says. As has everyone else around you. He did not kill your clan to test his strength. He did it because he was ordered to. By Konoha. Sasuke's brain screeches to a halt. He stares at Orochimaru, uncomprehending, and the words don't make sense. It's as if he's speaking in a different language, and Sasuke's mind is grasping around foreign symbols and sounds that refuse to make any sense. Shock is a cold rush of ice in his veins, a complete standstill in his brain and chest and lungs. He was ordered? There is a big empty space in his head where the thoughts ought to be. His tongue fumbles in his mouth, struggling to remember how to form words. You're lying. You're lying. Orochimaru's expression is almost pitying as he looks down at him. I'm afraid not. Your clan was planning coup d'état to take over. But the village knew. They used your precious older brother as a weapon. That way, they could tell themselves the blood wasn't on their hands. Sasuke's hands are shaking at his sides. It feels like he's been kicked in the center of his chest. The words repeat in fragments in his head. Coup d'état, the village, precious older brother. It isn't true. It can't be. But even as he denies it with everything in him, dozens of tiny different memories, things that never made sense, come together and coalesce in his mind. All the late night meetings. Attack his words the day after Shisui died, the kunao hitting the center of the clan crest. The tears slipping down his cheeks as he turned. He eliminated the entire Uchiha clan, Orochimaru says. That was his mission. As was leaving Konoha behind. No. Sasuke yells. Denial runs through him. Orochimaru is still standing in front of him, still keeping his back trapped against the tree, and he feels utterly suffocated by the other man. That isn't true. That can't. Then why am I alive? Why did he leave me alive? Because he loves you, of course. He says the words so easily, so simply. As if they don't hit him like an electric current wrapping around his entire body. He can't breathe. Time stretches and distorts. Everything seems both fuzzy and sharp at the same time. The world rushes into focus and also fades away. No, Sasuke thinks, as he feels the pieces of his entire life come falling apart. No. The words distort in his head. Because he loves you mixes with you mean nothing to me, the two voices merging and twisting around each other, tangling up his insides until he feels like he could scream. You're lying, Sasuke says. All of it. You're lying. It's the truth, Sasuke-kun. Shut up. Rage erupts in his chest like fire. Lightning explodes in his hand, 1,000 birds chirping. He pushes off the tree, driving his fist into Orochimaru's chest, feeling his chest cavity cave in. Orochimaru's body is replaced by a broken log. The Chidori fades from Sasuke's palms, but he doesn't pause, spinning around and aiming for the man again, now up in the trees. He's lying, Sasuke thinks, feeling the pieces of himself straining to be held together by a single frayed thread. He's lying, he's lying, he's lying. Fire bursts from his lips, and he remembers his father by the end of the dock. That's my boy, and Itaka killed him, drove his sword through his back. There's no way he could do that and love him, no way. You're nothing to me. Orochimaru dodges the flames easily, and Sasuke's hands are shaking as he makes the signs to do it again. He remembers Ataka's hands overlapping his as he corrected his hold on a shuriken, remembers a shuriken slicing through his shoulder that night. He remembers red eyes and bloody streets, his ribs snapping and a hand around his throat. Tsukuyomi. There's no way Ataka loves him, he said so himself. There's no way, no way, no way, no way. Sitting on a porch, the sun beating down on them. A kind smile curving his brother's lips. I'll always be there for you. Even if you do hate me. There's a wild panic in Sasuke's chest. It wraps around his lungs, crawls out of his mouth. His hands form the signs for Katon, but only wisps of smoke escape his lips. He tries to remember what his father taught him, to build up his chakra in his stomach, but nothing will focus and everything is wrong. Ataka doesn't, he never. It doesn't matter that there was no body to burn, that there is no tombstone with his name on it. The brother he knew died that day. A monster took his place. Orochimaru slides out of the tree behind him, seeming to peel off it, like shedding a skin. Sasuke jerks in surprise when he feels the man's body at his back, his fingers wrapping around his throat. Ataka's fingers wrapping around his neck, pulling him up. Sasuke drives his foot back in a surge of desperate panic, but it doesn't make contact. Orochimaru spins them around, pinning Sasuke face first against the tree. He forces both of his arms behind his back, pinning him with his own body, and Sasuke fights with all of his strength. He feels something snap, and then there's a sharp pain. Stop struggling, Orochimaru hisses against his ear, and it's just like Ataka that day in the inn. What part of "no need for violence" did you fail to understand? Sasuke kicks back at him desperately. Orochimaru's mouth is right by his ear, and he can feel his hair brush against his chin, and his presence is pressing down on him, and he can't breathe. Orochimaru grips his shoulder, his fingers brushing the curse mark. I was really hoping we could do this the easy way. Sasuke can't fight. His hands are pressed between him and Orochimaru, held in a bruising grip. And he can't think, not with Orochimaru standing so close, pinning him, and it reminds him so much of Ataki in that hallway. He did it because he was ordered to. By Konoha. Impossible. Impossible, impossible. Ataki in the interrogation room, the look in his eyes as he spoke. We all live inside the fantasies we create. Every part of him rebels against it. It's a lie. A clever manipulation on Orochimaru's part. It can't be the truth. Your older brother has been lying to you. As has everyone else around you. Did everyone know? Did Kakashi? His head is too loud. He can't fucking think. I would have preferred you to come with me willingly, Orochimaru says. I thought telling you the truth might persuade you to leave that place you call a home behind, but clearly it's going to take some time for my words to sink in, and I don't have that kind of time. Orochimaru's hand moves up from the curse mark, his fingers circling Sasuke's chin. He brushes the shallow cut at his throat left by the kunai, and Sasuke's breath hitches. He wonders, for a moment, about how he's so terrified for his own life, when only minutes before he had been about to end it. Force will have to do for now, the Sunin says. His fingers are cold against Sasuke's throat. There will be plenty of time later to persuade you. Orochimaru freezes, his body tensing against Sasuke's. Against his ear, Sasuke can feel his lips curl into a smile. Well, well. It looks like we have some company. He spins Sasuke around, kicking out his knees. Caught off guard, Sasuke is unable to rebalance. He hits the ground, his hands catching him. That's when Naruto and Sakura burst through the trees. Sasuke! Naruto yells. The two of them catch sight of him first. Then they spot Orochimaru, and their faces go slack with surprise, then fear. It looks like your teammates have come to your rescue, Orochimaru says gleefully. Perhaps if I kill one of them, you'll be more willing to cooperate. Sasuke feels fear burst to life in his chest, spreading ice through his entire body. He stares up at their pale faces. What are they doing here? Where the hell is Kakashi? Orochimaru steps toward them, sharp teeth glinting in the moonlight. Tell me, Sasuke-kun, which one should it be? The little girl or the Jinchuriki? They've been in the land of rivers for less than 20 minutes when the crow Ataka sent out returns to him. It rockets through the sky, its wings flapping urgently, and Ataka frowns when he sees it. What's up with your summon? Kisame asks from next to him. I've never seen it behave like that before. Itake raises his arm to catch the bird on his arm. It caws as it lands, a sharp, desperate note. Itake's Sharingan activates as he schemes the surface of the animal's mind, gaining all the information he needs. Kin, the crow tells him. Snake. Itake's blood goes cold. He shakes the bird from his arm, and it leaves in a burst of black feathers. He understands the crow's communication perfectly, and now the same urgency in the bird's movements is now in his. Orochimaru has his brother cornered. He's alone. Where is his team? Itake wonders with a surge of frustration. He banishes the thought quickly. They clearly aren't there, and speculating on why only wastes his time. He's still miles away from their location, he needs to be there now. Itake calms himself with the reminder that the man isn't going to kill him. And he doesn't think he'll try to possess Sasuke's body now he's still weakened from his battle with the third, it's unlikely he has that kind of strength. What is it? Kisame asks, reading his expression. What happened? Did you catch that traitor's trail? There's something strange in his partner's voice when he says the words that traitor. The comment is almost pointed. Unfortunately, Itake doesn't have the time to contemplate it. Sasuke. I found him, Itake says, and is grateful when his voice comes out sounding level. My crow picked up on his location. You stay here. I can handle this myself. He knows Kisame will never agree. He turns his back on his partner, waiting for the argument, as he prepares to leave him behind. There's no protest, and Itake feels a faint flicker of surprise, but every part of him is now focused on Sasuke. He focuses on the location he saw in the crow's mind, preparing to push off the ground. He activates his Sharingan, black eyes swirling into red. Hold on, Sasuke. Same Hada slices through the air behind him. Itake freezes as he feels his chakra be sliced right down the middle, then be sucked away. His Sharingan flickers and dies. I don't think so, Kisame says. Itake feels the end of the wrapped sword press into his lower back. Slowly, he turns his head, meeting his partner's narrow white eyes. In his panic to reach his brother, Itake did the stupidest thing he could have possibly done. He turned his back on an unknown element. You're not going anywhere, Itake. Chapter 32. Kisame, Itake says. The night air is still around them. What is the meaning of this? Same Hada presses further into Itake's back, and he resists the urge to wince. The smile Kisame gives him is full of teeth. Well, you see, Itake-san. Leader Sama told me some interesting information about you while you were off vacationing in Konoha. Itake doesn't allow himself to visibly tense, but realization immediately hits him. He thinks back to all the strange glances Kisame has been giving him, all the pointed comments of course. Itake keeps his face blank, replying in a level voice. It was hardly a vacation. What did Pain-sama tell you? It must be something for you to be pointing your sword at me like this. Kisame shakes his head with a slight chuckle. Not Pain, Itake-san. You know who I'm speaking of. Itake's mouth tightens. Yes. I do. Don't act so surprised by this. I gave you fair warning when we first met, did I not? I told you, be wary of me. Itake remembers that moment, on the edge of the dock. He remembers Same Hada at his shoulder and Kisame at his back, the sharks circling in the water below. He remembers the way he allowed the Mangekyou to swirl into his eyes. I remember, he says now. But I believe I said the same goes to you. Itake's body explodes in a burst of crows. Kisame doesn't look very surprised, most likely anticipating this. It's one of Itake's most frequently used tricks, after all. He isn't fooled into thinking it's a genjutsu. He's been careful not to look into Itake's eyes this whole time. No, this is real, which means it was a clone. So where is the real one? The clone reforms above him, the crows coalescing to form Itake, hovering in midair. Attacking me is foolish, Itake says. What do you have to gain from it? You know you'll lose. It's nothing personal, Itake-san, Kisame says. I'm just following orders. I'm sure you understand that, don't you? Same Hada slices through the clone, sucking away the chakra and causing it to disperse once again. Itaka's jaw tightens at the taunt, as his real body drops down from the trees. I'm just following orders. I'm sure you understand that. It's all the confirmation Itaka needs that Kisame knows the truth about him. That Madara specifically planned this, in order to take Itaka out. It's a good strategy. Itaka is exactly the kind of person Kisame despises, a liar through and through. And as his partner, he knows Itaka's moves more intimately than anyone else. He's one of the very few that stand a chance in killing him. Itaka wasn't sure, until this moment, that Madara knew the truth about him. He suspected it, and was beginning to formulate plans in the case of the man approaching Sasuke after his death, but he was still not completely sure. He is now. Madara knew all along. But until now, he considered me more of an asset than a risk. Don't lie to yourself, Itaka tells him. I thought you hated people who did that. Kisame's head snaps up toward the real Itaka. With a yell, he swings his giant sword at Itaka once more. Itaka blocks with a kunao, but the force is still enough to send him flying back. Itaka backflips in the air, landing high on a tree branch. It's nothing personal, he repeats. This is absolutely personal, and you know it. He jumps from the branch, back toward his partner. He blocks Samehada with the kunao again, barely managing to keep hold of it, and he twists the left side of his body into a kick. Kisame blocks with the side of Samehada. Itaka twists himself back, halting Samehada once again with the kunao in his right hand, but he holds the weapon there this time. It cuts into the wrappings covering Kisame's sword. Itaka's Sharingan is activated, but Kisame knows far better than to make the rookie mistake of looking into his eyes. He bares his teeth, pressing his sword against the kunao. Itaka fights to hold it steady physically. Kisame is stronger than him. He doesn't think about Sasuke. That will distract him too much. This has nothing to do with the Akatsuki, Itaka says. You're attacking me because you want to kill me. Because I'm the exact sort of person you hate most of all, isn't that right? Kisame's white eyes narrow, his mouth twisting. Itaka pushes him back a step as he continues to speak. I was never loyal to the Akatsuki. I've been selling information on them to Konoha for all these years the same way your former superior sold information to foreign villages. And you killed him, didn't you? Because you can't stand liars. You can't stand betrayers. Kisame's eyes flash, a low growl escaping between his sharp teeth. Itaka has to be careful. He knows all of Kisame's moves, but Kisame also knows all of his. You've always been loyal to a fault, Kisame. That's a quality we've always shared. Our loyalties are simply in different places. Kisame presses forward and some of the scales burst through the bandages on his sword. They slice into the skin beneath Itaka's eye, and Itaka jerks back in both surprise and pain, blood trailing down his cheek. Keep talking, Itaka, Kisame growls, and Itaka notes that he's dropped the respectful honorific now. Samehada is hungry. She doesn't really like the taste of fire chakra, but she'll make an exception in your case. Itaka flips away as Samehada slices through the air again, its scales now wriggling and growling like something alive. Kisame strikes it into the ground, and Itaka's Sharingan follows the quick movements of his hands as they make seals. Kisame thrusts his hand out. A bomb of water, shaped like a shark, rushes toward him, and Itaka's hands form their own seals. Katon, Fireball Jutsu. Flames burst from his lips, colliding with Kisame's water-style attack. He's been careful, up until now, not to use any jutsu. Samehada can't just suck up ambient chakra, but it can the moment Itaka channels that chakra into a technique. The collision of elements is enough to cause the sound of an explosion, smoke rising up above the trees. Itaka uses his Sharingan to find his partner, even in the blur of smoke, and appears behind him. He places his kunao at Kisame's throat. Enough, Kisame. In the end, I simply knew everything about you while you knew nothing about me. I know you care about that kid brother of yours. Perhaps I'll pay him a visit after I'm finished here with you. Itaka's jaw clenches. He presses the edge of the blade further into Kisame's skin. You won't touch Sasuke. Give this up. He hopes his partner will. He doesn't wish to kill him, but he will if he has to. He can't waste time with this, he needs to get to where Orochimaru and his brother are. Kisame smirks. His body is replaced by water, splashing to the ground. Water clone. Itaka spins around, eyes widening when he sees Samehada swinging. Instinctively, his Sharingan twists. Amaterasu. The scales on Samehada rip through him, even as the sword catches fire. Itaka gasps as pain rips through his shoulder, at the same time as it spikes through his right eye. He falls to one knee, clutching his eye as a trail of blood trails down his face. His other hand clutches his shoulder, which is burning in agony. Samehada's scales tore right through his cloak and shirt, ripping open his skin. Blood soaks into his cloak. Itaka forces his head up. The vision of his right eye is extremely blurred, nearly impossible for him to see when his surroundings are already so dark. Kisame has discarded the wrappings covering Samehada. They are feet away, Amaterasu reducing them to ashes. Itaka can't feel his chakra. His Sharingan has deactivated. Kisame's sword has cut through it, stealing it. There are still many options he can take here. But he can barely see out of one eye already, and he won't be able to confront Orochimaru if he's blind. The blood loss from the wound on his shoulder is already making him feel alarmingly weak. Kisame, he says. Listen to me. Please. I need you to let me go to my brother. Kisame grins with a mouth full of sharp teeth. Are you begging me? I never thought I'd see the day. Itaka grits his teeth against the pain in his shoulder. He fights to straighten up on the one knee he's fallen on. What do you hope to accomplish from this? The Akatsuki can't give you what you desire. Madara will cast this land into a world of truth, one without any lies. The infinite Tsukuyomi? That's not a world without lies, that's a world made up of only lies. Something flickers in Kisame's eyes at the words, a hint of uncertainty. Itaka grasps onto it. This world cannot exist without lies. They go hand in hand with the truth. Surely you must realize that. Kisame doesn't move. His eyes narrow. The infinite Tsukuyomi is a dream. An illusion. You'll spend your entire life inside it and never know any differently. You claim to despise lies. This can't be what you truly want. His partner's hand tightens around Samehada. There's clear uncertainty in his eyes now, his expression torn as he looks down. And if I agreed, Kisame spits, what do you suggest I do? He ordered me to kill you. Tell him you did, Itaka says. Tell him I'm dead, that you killed me. You completed your assignment. You don't really expect Madara to just believe that. Itaka winces as he forces himself to his feet. His arm is now soaked in blood as it drips down from his shoulder where his hand is still pressing against the deep wound. His head spins, and he forces himself to stay balanced. Probably not, he says. But you won't ever have to see me again. Tell the Akatsuki you killed me, and I swear, I'll never show my face again. Kisame stares at him for a moment, at the blood coating him. He's blurry to Itaka's eyes. All of this, he says. It's really all for your brother? Just for that one kid? Itaka swallows painfully, meeting his eyes. Yes. Kisame's eyes are penetrating, seem to see straight into his soul. After a long moment, he lowers his sword. Go. Itaka blinks. You're. Just go, his partner snarls. Before I change my mind and drag your bleeding corpse all the way back to Omegakure. Thank you, Kisame. Naruto was the one to wake up and find Sasuke missing from his sleeping bag. He was also the one to shake Sakura awake, to suggest they go looking for him. They left Kakashi asleep. Naruto sees now that this was a very stupid decision. Well, Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru says, pressing a foot into the small of Sasuke's back. Which one? We don't have all night, you know. Naruto is frozen in place. Next to him, Sakura is the same, her skin translucent in the moonlight shining through the trees. Her body is shaking, as she stares into Orochimaru's slit pupils. What are you two doing? Sasuke hisses from his position on the ground. Get out of here. Naruto sees the fear bright in his dark eyes. For some reason, it snaps him out of his terrified state. Us? What are you doing just laying there, huh? Get up and fight this guy. Don't let him step on you. Even as he says this, he can see where Sasuke might be having a problem. Orochimaru's foot is pinning one of his arms to the ground. The other arm is twisted, clearly broken. There's dirt on his face, along with a long cut on his throat, blood dried on his neck. Naruto feels anger pulse inside him. It only increases when he hears the man's amused chuckle. Naruto Uzumaki. Come to save your friend, just like before. It's cute. I think I'll kill you first. The girl doesn't present much of a challenge. Naruto can feel the Kyuubi inside of him growling. He can feel his nails sharpen, stinging his palms. Let go of him, he growls. He can feel himself shaking. Sasuke-kun and I were just talking, Orochimaru says. Be careful. You're getting that beast inside of you rather riled up. Naruto brings his hands together, shaking as he forms the seals. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A dozen shadow clones appear. All of them, including the real Naruto, go charging toward Orochimaru. Naruto! Sakura yells. As the shadow clones attack Orochimaru, disappearing one after another only to be immediately replaced, Sakura forces her terrified body to move, rushing to Sasuke. He's pushing himself off the ground as she reaches him, and he doesn't look like himself. Normally, he would have thrown himself into the fight already, but he looks like he can hardly parse out what is going on. Sasuke-kun? Sasuke-kun, what's wrong? Is it the curse mark? She moves to touch it, and in doing so, catches sight of the thin cut on his throat. Her eyes widen. What happened? Sasuke flinches away from her fingers as they brush the wound. Nothing. What are the two of you doing here? You need to leave. Not without you. Sasuke shakes his head, his eyes going between her and the Sannin, still fighting off dozens of Narutos. I can't, you have to. Sakura's never seen him like this before. Naruto breaks away from his clones, leaving them to fight the snake for a few moments. He kneels down on the ground. Sasuke, he says. I don't know why you're acting like this now. I don't know what he said to you. But you have to put it out of your mind right now, okay? Sasuke shakes his head. He said Itake. Naruto feels a burst of frustration in his chest. Sasuke. He's going to kill us. Pull it together, bastard. Those words seem to actually penetrate his brain. He stares at Naruto, and some of the haze over his eyes seems to harden, becoming something steely and determined. Naruto watches as he forces whatever is consuming him back, forcing it down and focusing on the fight. You're right, he says, and his Sharingan activates. He turns to his left. Sakura, stay behind me. Don't engage him. Naruto stands up, and Sasuke stands with him. The last of the clones disappears, and Orochimaru turns to look at them without a scratch on him. From the corner of his eye, Naruto sees Sakura stand up as well. She falls into a stance, clutching her kunai tightly. You're not touching them, Sasuke says from beside him. And I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't care what you say. Pity, Orochimaru says. It seems we'll have to do this the bloody way, then. Something brushes against Naruto's hip. When Sasuke rushes forward, a blade glinting in his uninjured hand, Naruto realizes he stole the kunai at Naruto's waist. Sasuke throws the kunai, and Naruto doesn't know where he got the wire string from, but it curves through the air as the kunai does, wrapping around the trunk of a tree. How did he even find the time to attach that? Naruto wonders, but he supposes he shouldn't be surprised. Sasuke's always been very adept with wire string. It wraps around Orochimaru's body, nearly trapping him against the tree, but Orochimaru snips the wire just in time, flipping up onto a branch above them. I don't think so, Sasuke-kun, he says. You caught me off guard with that trick the last time. It isn't going to happen again. Naruto has clones positioned around them. He stares up at Orochimaru, trying to figure out what he should do. The raised non. The sound of chirping birds erupts next to him. Naruto spins just in time to see Sasuke push off the ground, the bright light of his Chidori cutting through the darkness. The jutsu crackles and dies in midair. The curse mark on his neck flares, and Sasuke cries out. Eyes widening, Sakura rushes to catch him as he falls. Sasuke-kun. What happened? Sasuke is on his knees on the ground, panting. He looks utterly exhausted suddenly, his sleeve smoking from the failed Chidori. Naruto recognizes the state he's in just like when battling Gaara. Idiot, he yells. How many times have you used that jutsu already? You're not supposed to use it more than twice, remember? Sasuke hunches over himself, Sakura kneeling by his side. Naruto feels cold fear explode in his chest at their vulnerable position. They both need to get up. How disappointing, Orochimaru says from above them. Your brother was much more of a challenge. Oh well. I suppose your skill won't matter much once I take your body for myself. Suddenly, like something from a horrible nightmare, Orochimaru's head shoots from his neck, towards Sasuke with his fangs bared. Naruto's eyes widen. Sasuke. But it isn't Sasuke that Orochimaru sinks his teeth into. It's Sakura. She shrieks as he bites her throat, and as his head snaps back to his body, her eyes roll up into her skull. She collapses. No. Sasuke yells. Sakura-chan. Naruto rushes toward his teammate, his heart in his throat. It feels like there's ice in his veins, and it feels like everything is underwater. Sakura-chan, no. Sasuke is already next to her, pulling her limp body close to himself. Naruto falls to the ground, barely feeling it as he scrapes up his knees. Sakura-chan. Sakura-chan. There are two twin holes on Sakura's pale neck, trailing blood. Naruto's heart is beating so hard he feels it might give out. Is she okay? Is she breathing? What was that? Is she poisoned? Sasuke presses trembling fingers to her neck, feeling for a pulse. Suddenly, he stills, his entire body freezing. Naruto's heart jumps into his throat. Is she alright? Sasuke, is she? Sasuke stares down at her, his hair hiding his expression. His fingers are unmoving against her throat. Sasuke. Naruto yells. Is she alright? Sasuke looks up. Blood is trailing from his eyes, his Sharingan in the shape of a six-pointed star. Chapter 33. The darkness encompasses him completely. It presses in on all sides, swallowing him. There's a small part of him that wants to fight it, but it's everywhere, and it's so much easier to let himself sink. A sharp voice, a familiar voice, cuts through his head like a knife. Kai. Kakashi's eyes snap open. The first thing he sees is Itachi Uchiha hovering in front of him, red eyes glowing in the dark, and instinct causes him to immediately stand up, hand going for the kunao at his belt. The attack is sloppy and uncoordinated, born mainly out of surprise, and Itachi catches his arm easily, twisting his wrist. Stop, he says, as the kunao falls. I'm not here to hurt you. Kakashi thinks of red eyes tearing through him, a sword impaling him on a post. He holds his entire body tense. And I should believe that. Memories have flooded back now, following the initial burst of fear upon waking. He remembers everything Tsunade told him, but that still doesn't grant Itachi his trust. He may have killed the Uchiha on Konoha's orders, but he's still an S-rank criminal. He's a member of the Akatsuki, and Kakashi has no idea where his loyalties are now. Believe what you want, Itachi says. But if I wanted to kill you, I could have done it while you were asleep. Kakashi is still struggling to calm his racing heart as he takes in the situation. The forest around them is dark. He must have fallen asleep while on watch. He recalls the heavy sleep that was dragging him under and the sharp voice that dispelled it. Kai. Genjutsu, he realizes. He frowns in bewilderment. Who? Orochimaru, Itachi answers. It was a complex illusion, and probably placed on you very subtly. I was able to break it once I came upon you. Fear shoots through Kakashi's heart. Orochimaru. His follow-up question about what Itachi is doing here flees him, replaced instantly with a sharp fear for his students. He passes the missing nin, running quickly over a few feet away. The sleeping bags are abandoned on the ground. All three of his students are missing. No, Kakashi thinks. No, 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 no. It's only the decades spent in Umbu that grants him the ability to force down his panic, to banish the fear so that he can focus and think clearly. What happened? He asks, spinning back toward Itachi. Did you see where they went? The look on Itachi's face is the same as the one on his someone who is inwardly panicking, but has had years of training in hiding it. Sasuke is with Orochimaru, he says, his voice taut. I don't know where your other two students are, but I assume they're with him. The panic shoots through him again. For the second time, Kakashi balls the feeling up and swallows it. Do you know where he is? I was tracking him before I even realized Sasuke was here. One of my crows is at his location right now. Itachi's eyes are still blazing with the Sharingan, and there's an intensity to them that's reminiscent of the last time he saw him. Hands curled into the collar of his vest. My brother is all I think of. For the first time, Kakashi properly looks at the teenager in front of him. There's blood on Itachi's face and on his cloak there's a large rip in his shoulder, and he has a bloody hand pressed against the wound. With a frown, Kakashi pulls up his Hitayate to expose his Sharingan. As he suspected, Itachi's chakra is nearly completely drained. You can't come with me, Kakashi says to him. Tell me where they are, and I'll handle it myself. Itachi's jaw tightens. Look, I know you have no reason to trust me. But I want Sasuke safe. I know. Itachi blinks. You know. I know you want him safe, Kakashi tells him. I know the truth behind the massacre. I still don't trust you, but I believe you won't let him die. This is clearly a lot for Itachi to process. Shock flashes through his crimson eyes, his lips parting slightly. You know? How? Does Sasuke? No, he doesn't, Kakashi snaps. We don't have time for this. If Orochimaru has them, he won't kill Sasuke. He still needs him. Maybe, Kakashi says. But he won't care about Naruto and Sakura. He'll kill them without blinking. Fear is bright in his heart and lungs, threatening to crack through his Umbu mindset. If anything happens to them, just tell me the location, and I'll get Sasuke out of there. No, Itachi says strongly. I'm going after him. Look at you, Kakashi tells him. You're in no state to fight. He scowls, pressing his palm tighter against the deep wound on his shoulder. It's just a scrape. That is not just a scrape, but it's not what I meant. You hardly have any chakra left, you're on the brink of collapse. Itachi doesn't bother to deny this, knowing it's true. I'm the one who knows Orochimaru's location, he says. Either I can take you with me, or I can go by myself. And you can spend half an hour traipsing around this forest and get there far too late. Kakashi's jaw clenches. Itachi is right. Here Kakashi is, trying to get Itachi to stay behind, when he's the only one who actually knows where to go. He's going to go after Sasuke regardless. Kakashi will reach his students faster with Itachi's help, and arguing over it is only wasting precious time. Fine, Kakashi says. But the focus has to be on getting the kids away. Don't engage unless you're forced to. Itachi nods curtly. Follow me. They aren't too far. Half a mile, maybe. He pushes off the ground, into the trees. Heart pounding rapidly against his ribs, Kakashi follows. He prays he isn't too late, that he hasn't once again failed to protect what is precious to him. Kakashi doesn't trust Itachi Uchiha, but his love for Sasuke is real, and for now, Kakashi will have to put his faith in that. Sakura isn't breathing. She's limp on the ground, her eyes closed and her face pale. There's blood on her throat, 2 small bite marks, and Sasuke presses his fingers desperately to her pulse point, searching for a beat that isn't there. Sasuke's mind is in free fall, spinning out of control, unable to grasp what's in front of him. The evidence of all his senses must be lying, because there's no way that Sakura can be dead. Naruto is yelling something, but Sasuke can't hear him. The image in front of him swims, becoming the eerily identical one from his dream, Sakura face down on the floor in the place of his mother. He remembers the feeling of her arms wrapped around him by the edge of the dock. You won't be alone. Sasuke's bloody fingers are completely still against Sakura's neck. He stares down at her lifeless face, an intense pressure building behind his eyes. No. Grief anger ignites in his chest, sharper and deeper than anything he's ever felt. It tastes like hot ash on his tongue. No. Sasuke lifts his head. His eyes are burning. Sasuke, Naruto says, stunned. Your eyes. Orochimaru looks down at him from above. His expression drops into shock for a moment, but then his smile grows, a lustful look in his eyes. Remarkable, he breathes. Every other thought flees his head. Even Orochimaru's words about attack they mean nothing with Sakura dead at his feet. Sasuke remembers his vow when he was fighting Gaara. His entire body shakes with fury. I promised myself I wouldn't let it happen again, that I would never watch my comrades fall. Sasuke's body is depleted of chakra from attempting to activate the third Chidori. But somehow, he finds in himself a sudden burst of strength. Power is surging in his eyes. Naruto has pulled Sakura into his lap. He's shaking her shoulders, calling her name desperately. He becomes background noise. Sakura. His heart burning, he pushes off the ground and leaps. Sasuke. Naruto yells. Something swirls inside him as he stares up into Orochimaru's golden eyes. He sees pink hair against the ground, sees a pool of blood collecting beneath his parents' bodies. He sees himself, pathetic and weak, running away with tears pouring down his face. Never again. Sakura's smile from that moment on the dock is engraved in his soul. You don't have to be okay. You don't have to pretend. How dare he fucking take her? Power surges behind his eyes again. Orochimaru's expression flickers with unease, as he jumps back from the branch. Black fire erupts in front of Sasuke's eyes. It catches Orochimaru's sleeve, flames instantly flaring. Sasuke cries out, the curse mark on his shoulder burning. His chakra is completely gone, and he drops back to the ground as everything in him seems to gasp for air. Orochimaru falls from the branch of the tree as the deadly flames envelop his arm. In a panic, face twisted in pain, the arm shoots out like a snake, and he slices through it with a blade. The Sannin grunts in pain, falling to one knee, as his arm falls to the ground. Blood gushes from his shoulder, and the black flames continue to reduce his detached arm to ash. Sasuke's shoulder burns. A snake shoots out from Orochimaru's collar, wrapping around Sasuke's neck. Sasuke! Naruto yells. His blue eyes seem to have a reddish tint to them. Damn it, you bastard! Let go of him. Sasuke is yanked forward, the tips of his feet dragging through the dirt. Orochimaru's face is one of utter rage, his left side soaked in blood from the missing limb he sliced off to avoid burning to a crisp. That's too much blood, he won't last much longer. The snake tightens around Sasuke's neck. Its fangs poise at his throat, pricking his skin, and Sasuke freezes. Don't touch him. Sasuke turns toward the guttural voice. Naruto's eyes have turned a dark, menacing red. The whiskers on his cheeks have become more prominent, his teeth sharp and biting into his lip. Sasuke stares in shock. Naruto, what? Orochimaru takes advantage of his inattention, and backhands him hard across the face. Sasuke's head snaps to the side, and he tastes blood in his mouth. He stumbles. He's pinned to the ground. Orochimaru has a knee pressed into his chest, his hand gripping Sasuke's chin in a bruising grip, forcing his head against the ground. White snakes emerge from his clothes where his arm used to be, dripping with the blood still pouring from his shoulder. They twine around Sasuke's wrists and ankles. One of them slithers next to his head, hissing in his ear. It flicks its forked tongue against his cheek, and Sasuke flinches. Impertinent brat, Orochimaru snarls. He's emanating a wave of killing intent, strong enough to make Sasuke feel like he can't breathe. I was going to wait 3 more years for this, but now I don't have a choice. Fear sparks in his heart, enveloping his heart in ice. He's not going to take over my body? He can't have enough strength for that. But blood is still pouring out of the man rapidly where his arm was. If he doesn't attempt it now, he'll die anyway. Sasuke fights once he realizes this, kicking and thrashing, but the snakes constricting him only tighten. He can't move, he doesn't have any chakra, there's nothing. Naruto. Orochimaru is leaning close to him. His hair brushes Sasuke's face. Don't fight, he hisses. It won't hurt so much that way. No. Sasuke gropes desperately at the ground next to him, clawing at it. His fingers brush against the kunai that was knocked from his hand earlier, the one he nearly used to slit his own throat. No, I won't let you. Black spots are clouding his vision. Orochimaru's golden eyes are being burned into his very soul, and it feels like his nerves are on fire. He stretches his fingers desperately, managing to wrap them around the hilt of the weapon. I won't let you. Sasuke takes a deep breath, and he draws the kunai across both of his eyes. No. Orochimaru screams. Pain explodes in his face, and the entire world goes a blinding white. He feels the kunai being slapped from his hand. The last thing he's aware of is Naruto screaming his name and a malevolent chakra erupting into the air. Chapter 34. Release me, the Kyuubi rumbles from inside him. Let me out, Naruto. Naruto's palms are shaking against the ground, his fingernails becoming claws and digging into the dirt. His teeth are sharpening, shredding up his bottom lip. There's a massive force rising up inside of him. His mouth fills with his own blood as he struggles to fight it back. But his own rage is overpowering, only fueling the bloodlust of the beast inside of him. Sakura is on the ground next to him, pale as death with red at her throat. Sasuke is unconscious, rivers of blood trailing from closed eyelids. Orochimaru. Orochimaru's arm is still oozing a thick flow of blood, soaking into Sasuke beneath him. His face is one of complete outrage. You stupid brat, he snarls. The snake around Sasuke's neck tightens, and he hangs limply in its grasp. Do you have any idea what you... The monster inside of Naruto rises up and roars. Get away from him. The voice is deep and guttural. Orochimaru's head whips in his direction. His eyes widen as he shoots unsteadily to his feet, and he swears under his breath. Kyuubi, he hisses. The fox inside of Naruto snarls in response to the name. Chakra is bubbling around him, and the seal on his stomach is burning. He hasn't felt like this since the Land of Waves, his teammate's body limp in his arms. Sasuke is in the same state now. And Sakura is could be please don't be dead. Naruto shakes with rage. He looks down at Sakura's deathly white face, and he thinks he feels something burst from his back. Release me. The Kyuubi snarls. No, Naruto thinks, still struggling desperately. No, I won't let you. You'll destroy everything. His sharp teeth have bitten through his lip. His hands claw at the ground. The rage burns in his chest, coursing through his veins. He has to save them. He can't let them die. But... Orochimaru backs up as if to flee, still clutching at his shoulder. Sasuke's face is pale, coated in blood. The Kyuubi is growling, snarling, hissing, roaring. Let me out. Naruto's entire world goes red. Kakashi jumps from branch to branch as he rushes after his students, Itachi leading the way in front of him. He's surprised by the distance they have to cover. How far away are they? How did you learn the truth? Itachi asks, not slowing his pace in the slightest as he speaks. Who else knows? The night air is cold against his face. Kakashi stares at Itachi's back, the darkness almost appearing to swallow him. Danzo made himself look too suspicious after you escaped our custody, Kakashi says. The elders were forced to fess up. As far as I'm aware, Tsunade is the only one other than me who knows. Good. You should keep it that way. Kakashi bites his tongue against the sudden burst of anger that floods him. As a shinobi, he understands the need for secrecy. Intel this sordid has the power to destabilize the leaf. But as Sasuke's teacher, he's seen up close how his student is falling apart. How he pretends he's holding himself together when really he's dangling on an edge. Sasuke deserves to know the truth, Kakashi says. He pushes off a branch slightly harder than he means to, sending it crashing down below. Your lies are killing him. You're killing him. He can't know. It's better if he doesn't. That's shit and you know it. It's necessary. There is so much Kakashi wants to say to that. Was torturing him for 13 straight days necessary? Making him feel utterly worthless in your eyes? For everything that he now understands, there's still so much that he doesn't. But he doesn't have time to get into all of that right now, no matter how badly he wants to demand an explanation. I don't understand your reasons for what you've been doing, he says. But whatever your plan, it's clearly already fallen apart. Why are you still trying so hard to hold it together? Itaka pushes off a branch, broadening the distance between them. Kakashi's jaw tightens. Don't you get it, Itaka? You fucked up. There are no more plans. The best thing you can do for Sasuke now is tell the truth. Kakashi remembers Itaka claiming everything he did was for Sasuke, and he expects the missing nin to argue. But instead, there is a drawn-out silence. When Itaka finally responds, his soft words are nearly carried away by the wind. You might be right. Kakashi blinks in surprise, uncertain if he heard correctly. He pauses, then opens his mouth to respond, and that's when a familiar chakra surges through the night air. Kakashi freezes immediately on a branch, his breath stopping. Itaka does the same, his eyes widening. His head swivels around, red eyes locking with Kakashi's in the darkness. Do you feel that? Naruto, Kakashi breathes. He'll never forget the feel of this chakra. He's felt it on two separate occasions, once during the night of the Nine-Tails attack, and again in the Land of Waves. It still haunts his nightmares, Minato and Kushina's bodies surrounded by rubble. It's dark and evil. It suffocates the entire forest, crawling in his mouth and wrapping around his lungs. It presses on his chest, tendrils reaching down his throat and twining around his ribcage. He can't breathe. For a moment, Itaka seems overcome as well. He quickly gathers himself. We need to get there now. If the Kyuubi is loose. Kakashi doesn't need him to finish the sentence, snapshots from the tragedy 13 years ago flashing behind his eyes. If Naruto is allowing even a little of the Kyuubi's power to leak through the seal, he won't be able to distinguish between friend and foe. He'll be feral, destroying everything in his path. This is his fault. He'd allowed all three of them to be snatched right out from under him. Kakashi pushes off the branch he's on, rushing through the trees. He passes Itaka quickly, now having no need to follow behind him. The intense chakra in the air directs him toward his student's location. Behind him, he feels Itaka begin moving again as well. Kakashi doesn't allow himself to linger on what could have happened to cause the Kyuubi to emerge. The last time power leaked through the seal, Naruto thought Sasuke was dead. Oh god, what if? Kakashi forces the thought from his mind. No. Just find them. He hears it before he comes upon the scene. Noises of destruction and roaring. The ominous chakra fills the air, and some of the trees shake. Kakashi sees a red glow breaking through the darkness. At least he knows the Kyuubi isn't free. The demon fox would have leveled half the forest by now. But if Sakura and Sasuke are in the vicinity. He jumps from the branch and down to the ground, passing fallen trees as he bursts onto the scene. An entire area of the forest has been blown away, and Kakashi has to jump over debris from dozens of shattered tree trunks. Kakashi's breath is punched from his lungs, his heart jumping into his throat. Naruto is at the center of the destruction, a deep indent beneath his feet. He's on all fours, the look of a beast on his face. 3 of the Kyuubi's 9 tails are emerging from him. He's surrounded by a dark, burgundy chakra, and it makes Kakashi feel like his bones are being grated. It slips inside him and curls around his soul, turning him to ice. The chakra is so thick that Kakashi can hardly see past it, to glimpse what's happening inside it. He forces his muscles to work, pulling up his Hitayate to expose his Sharingan. Everything instantly sharpens. Naruto is raging, and his mouth and teeth are bloody. There's a shattered, blood-soaked form on the ground in front of him, and for a moment Kakashi's heart stops. He registers the pasty skin and purple markings around the eyes, and he can breathe again. It's Orochimaru. He immediately searches for his 2 other students, his heart pounding. He inhales sharply. Sakura is on the complete other side, her body tangled up in broken wood. Sasuke, by some miracle, hasn't been caught in the Kyuubi's rampage. But he isn't moving, and Kakashi can't tell if he's breathing, he can't tell if either of them are. God, no. Please, please, please. Itaki arrives just a moment after him, touching down on the ground and sending dirt into the air. His Sharingan is blazing, and there's a slight grimace of pain on his face from his injuries. Itachi's expression looks briefly terrified when he lays eyes on his brother, but he quickly snaps into mission mode. "Get Sasuke," he orders, already moving. "I'll deal with the Nine Tails." There's no time to argue. Kakashi rushes toward his two fallen students, sliding under one of Naruto's large tails as it slices through the air. He goes to Sasuke first, since he's closer. "Sasuke," he breathes, once he gets a good look at him. Kakashi swallows back the wave of horror that rises up in his throat. Sasuke is breathing, but that's about the only good news. Blood is streaming from behind his closed eyelids, staining his cheeks like tears. There are white snakes wrapped around him, though they seem unresponsive now that their master is down. Kakashi wastes no time cutting them away, starting with the one at Sasuke's neck. Kakashi crouches down by his student's head, pressing two fingers against his throat. There's a cut on his neck that makes him wince. His pulse is strong, despite his injuries. Kakashi brushes his bangs from his face, trying to get a better look at his wounds. As he suspected, Sasuke's eyes have been slashed. Though he's unconscious, Kakashi can tell by the deep line in the space between his eyes, the rest of the damage concealed behind closed eyelids. His eyes are still bleeding. But the blood flow isn't too great, meaning the wound didn't reach his brain. It won't be fatal. But whether his eyesight is salvageable, it doesn't make sense. Sasuke's eyes are the reason Orochimaru wants him. So why? Kakashi spots the bloody kunai less than 3 feet away and quickly puts it together. He did it himself. He's horrified. Sasuke's always been so proud of his eyes. They're a part of his lineage, his last link to his clan. To try and destroy them. Kakashi doesn't want to think about how desperate he must have been. There's a grunt feed behind him, followed by a roar. Kakashi risks turning his head. Itachi has been thrown back. Unable to regain his balance in time, his body dragged against the ground, ripping his already unsalvageable cloak. He forces himself back to his feet. Kakashi fights the urge to assist him. He can't do anything to help. He may have the Sharingan, but he doesn't have the power to control a tailed beast. Itachi is the only one here who can do it, which is why he went to Naruto first, even though he probably wanted nothing more than to rush to his brother's side. But in his weakened state, does he have enough power to get the Kyuubi under control? Kakashi forces his attention back to his student. The two of them are too close to Naruto's raging. Kakashi scoops Sasuke up in his arms, careful with his injuries. He rushes to his other student, who is also in horrible shape. She looks even worse up close, her skin pale as death, and her chest doesn't seem to be moving. Kakashi clears away the debris to set Sasuke down, scrambling to find a pulse. Kakashi remembers the day in the training field when she sobbed in his arms, so terrified that Sasuke would never wake up. He remembers how fragile her shaking body felt, how easy to break. He remembers promising to himself then that he would protect her, protect them. That Team 7 would not turn into another tragedy. Kakashi's fingers shake against her neck. He forces them to steady, otherwise he won't be able to read her pulse. There's a bite mark there, 2 tiny holes like fangs. Kakashi prays to the gods he doesn't believe in. Just this once, don't take them away from me. There. He finds the beat of her pulse, and the steel fist around his heart unclenches. It's thready and weak, and he's barely able to feel it, but it's there. She's alive. For now. The steel fist clenches around his heart again. He spins his head, urgency on his face. Itachi. Itachi's eyes are a blazing red, their pattern the shape of a curved shuriken. The expression on his face is one of intense concentration, and his forehead is beating with sweat. He looks like he's fighting against collapse. And Naruto. The red cloud surrounding the blonde has decreased, the feeling of his chakra less intense. He's down to 2 tails now instead of 3. His bloodied teeth are bared in anger, a feral snarl twisting his lips, but his gaze seems caught by Itachi's Sharingan. He doesn't move. Itachi stumbles slightly, but he doesn't fall. He takes a step forward. The Kyuubi's second tail begins to retreat. It's working. Naruto is floating on his back in water. Everything around him is cast in an orange tint. In front of him, metal bars rise up as far as he can see. Behind them is an endless darkness. He's been here before, one other time. The place inside of him where the demon fox is imprisoned. Everything drifts away. It's all meaningless. Despair crashes over him, and everything is hazy. Unreal. Sasuke and Sakura are dead, he whispers. They're both dead. He sees the images in front of his eyes. Sakura's pink hair spilled out over the ground. Sasuke's hand falling, his eyes weeping blood. Both of them are gone. Naruto pushes himself to his knees. His arms refuse to support him, and his face crashes into the water. He drags himself back up slowly. He feels like he can't breathe. His breaths have become shallow pants. He brings his hands up to the sides of his head, covering his ears. What am I supposed to do? A voice speaks from the darkness behind the bars, sending ripples across the water. Destroy everything. Naruto's eyes widen and he stares. The voice is inhuman, a rough growl, and it twists inside him, resonating with the very core of his being. A shape begins to emerge from the darkness. Sharp, glinting teeth and blood-red eyes. Eyes filled with a lust for violence, for destruction. Your friends are dead, the Kyuubi growls. You are alone once again. You have no one once again. Naruto can't speak. His chest is filled with broken glass, constantly shifting and shredding up his organs. He can't speak. He can't do anything. Hopelessness presses down, chaining him. His teammates are dead. They are gone. His friends, his family taken from him. They have been ripped away, and he is alone. He thinks he understands Sasuke's pain better now. To lose the people he loves and cherishes, it's an agony completely different from longing for the parents he never knew. It shreds his soul, carves into his ribs with a knife. How could he ever tell Sasuke that he understood? He never understood this type of raw anguish. It's so much deeper than anyone could ever try to imagine. Tears press against his eyes. Naruto gasps and clutches at his chest. Give me your soul, the Kyuubi says. All your pain will go away. I will save you from your suffering. And Naruto wants to. Why not? What is there left? He wants to give himself over, wants to make this pain stop. He doesn't want to feel anymore. He wants to give himself over to the Kyuubi's rage. Sasuke and Sakura are gone. The world is empty now, he is empty, and he wants to tear it apart. Because a world without the two of them isn't a world he wants to live in, isn't a world that anyone deserves to live in. Release me, the demon fox growls. Rip this seal off me. The monster has emerged almost fully from the darkness, his large form coiled tightly behind the bars containing him. Naruto stares into his red eyes and stands up, taking a step forward. That's it. You have nothing left. Free me from this wretched prison. Undo the seal. Naruto steps up to the cage. He watches his own arm extend, almost as if someone else is controlling his body. He watches his fingers curl around the paper seal on the bars, peeling it back. A hand grabs his wrist in a steel grip. His entire body is thrown back, hitting the water with a loud splash. It's like a bucket of ice water being dumped over his head. A punch straight to his face. Naruto's mind clears abruptly, and he sputters as the water floods his nose and mouth. It tastes like sewage. What was he thinking? He was just about to give himself over. How could he do that? He would have destroyed everything. He hasn't lost everyone. He isn't alone. He has Kakashi. And Iruka-sensei. And Sasuke might not be dead yet, but if Naruto lets the Kyuubi loose, he definitely will be. Naruto sits in the ankle-deep water. There's a person standing between him and the Kyuubi, but they're blurry. Naruto wipes at his eyes with his soaked sleeve. His vision clears slightly. The person has their back to him. But he has dark hair and an Akatsuki cloak, and Naruto recognizes them instantly. Itachi. Naruto-kun, Itachi says without turning his head. Stay where you are. Naruto has no intention of obeying the words, but his shock freezes him in place. He stares at the man's back, his emotions a wild mix of fear, anger, and confusion. What are you doing here? He demands. How are you here? If you've touched Sasuke. I haven't hurt my brother. I'm trying to stop you from hurting him. Naruto stares, speechless. Itaka steps forward, toward the bars of the cage. Kyuubi, he says in a level voice. The demon fox's face is one of intense hatred. He stares down at Itaka with utter loathing, killing intent rolling off of him in waves. Uchiha, the beast growls. You dare appear before me with those cursed eyes. I'll rip you to shreds. Naruto can't breathe. He can't see Itaka's face, so he can't see if the man is equally affected or not. You won't. You're already under my control. The moment the words leave his lips, something happens with the Kyuubi's eyes. They're still blazing red, but the shade seems to shift slightly. Less burgundy and more scarlet. 3 tomo appear around the pupils like the Sharingan. The Kyuubi roars. You wretched brat. Go back, Itaka tells him. Let Naruto go. His voice sounds confident, but there's also a hint of strain in it. His shoulders have an extra weight to them. Whatever he's doing, he's clearly struggling. But the beast listens. With an expression still full of hatred, he slinks back into the darkness of his cage. Naruto feels power leak out of him. Itaka turns to look at him. He holds out a hand, and Naruto doesn't know what to make of the expression on his face. Get up, he says. We need to get out of here. Naruto hesitates. He reaches up to grab the hand offered to him. Naruto's eyes snap open, though he doesn't remember closing them. Itaka is standing in front of him, his eyes bright red and bleeding, and he's in the center of a demolished forest. Itaka's Sharingan dies, his eyes returning to black. He falls to his knees. Itaka. Kakashi is by the criminal's side immediately, gripping his shoulder. Naruto is hopelessly confused. I'm fine, Itaka says in response to the unvoiced question. Just, exhausted. Suppressing a tailed beast, consumes a lot of chakra. Itaka breathes unevenly. Naruto looks between the two of them in growing anger. What the hell is going on, he bursts out. Why is this asshole here? And what did he do to me? Where's Orochimaru? Kakashi nods toward a mangled corpse on the ground. Naruto's eyes widen as he stares at it, the features barely recognizable. Who? You, Kakashi says, wincing slightly. I'm pretty sure you ripped his throat out, with your teeth. Naruto thinks he might throw up. Kakashi turns to the Akatsuki member next to him. Get your brother. I'll get the other two. Itaka nods, swaying slightly as he pushes himself up. Naruto's eyes widen. What? No. Kakashi-sensei, don't let that psychopath near Sasuke. Stay the hell away from him. Kakashi places his hands on his shoulders as he struggles to get up to get to his friend, who is unmoving on the ground feet away. Naruto, it's fine. No, it's not. Did you forget what he did? How can you let? Naruto. It's fine. The tone stops him. Naruto falls back to the ground. His mouth tastes like blood, and his bottom lip is shredded, but Naruto can feel it already healing up. He looks to Itaka, who is crouching down by his brother. Itaka pulls Sasuke's head into his lap with care, brushing the hair from his face with gentle fingers. His expression is tender. Naruto shakes his head. His gaze falls to Sakura's body feet away, to Orochimaru's bloody corpse, then back to Kakashi. It's going to be okay, Kakashi says. Itaka slowly lifts Sasuke into his arms. He walks over to Orochimaru's mangled body, and his Sharingan twists, the pattern changing. Blood slips from his eye. Amaterasu. Orochimaru's body is caught in black flames, the air filling with the smell of smoldering flesh. Itaka winces slightly, his eye twitching in pain. Kakashi raises an eyebrow. I'm pretty sure he was dead already. Was that really necessary? Itaka wipes the blood from his face. It's Orochimaru. You can never be too sure. Kakashi turns back to Naruto, pulling down his Hitite and hiding his Sharingan. Naruto looks at him helplessly. Sensei, I don't understand. Kakashi touches two of his fingers to Naruto's forehead. Like a spell being cast, Naruto feels a wave of exhaustion descend onto him. Sleep, Naruto, Kakashi says softly. Naruto does. Kakashi catches his body as it falls forward. Kakashi takes Naruto and Sakura into his arms, struggling to carry them both. Itachi holds Sasuke close, leaning his head against his chest. They both take off, moving at breakneck speed. Orochimaru's body is reduced to ashes. Unseen, a single white snake escapes and slithers away. Chapter 35. Even at their fastest speed, it still takes them hours to reach Konoha. Itachi strains beneath the weight of his brother's body. He's exhausted, drained of chakra, and holding Sasuke like this is pulling at the wound on his shoulder. It's excruciating. He can't recall the last time he was so pushed to his limits. The trees streak past him as he flies, a blur of brown and green that makes him dizzy. The vision in his right eye is badly impaired, and trying to focus it sends a sharp pain shooting through his optic nerve. Kakashi is in front of him, his back growing smaller as Itachi falls behind. He pushes himself harder, forcing his failing body to keep going. His shoulder has begun to grow numb. Itachi risks a quick glance down, his heartbeat skipping. Sasuke. He presses his brother close to him, holding him securely even as his arms scream in protest. One of his arms is around the bend in Sasuke's knees, and the other is around his back. He keeps his head tucked against his chest. Sasuke's hair tickles his chin. Shallow breaths puff against his throat. Itachi has already sent one of his crows off with a message. He doesn't know what kind of reception to expect when they reach the village, but the Hokage should be prepared for their arrival. Itachi can't think about where he's going right now. He can't think about how all of his plans have shattered into pieces around him. All he can think about is the unconscious boy in his arms. He needs Sasuke safe. Everything else is secondary. His speed is decreasing, no matter how much he tries to fight it. Kakashi isn't slowing for him. One of the students in his arms is possibly dying, after all. He can't afford to slow down. Itachi's vision blurs. His head is dizzy. He's forced to stop on a tree branch, leaning against the trunk for support. He closes his eyes and tries to make the world stop spinning. Every breath feels like he's inhaling smoke. He counts his breaths, readjusting his grip on his brother. Pain shoots through his shoulder, and he gasps, his fingers slipping slightly. Damn it! Itachi curses his lack of chakra. He shouldn't have engaged Kisame in a fight earlier. He should have just fled. Now, after using his Manjikyu to suppress the Nine Tails, he can barely stand. Being half-blind in one eye isn't helping either. He can taste blood in his mouth, which is worrying. He looks down at Sasuke, brushing the hair from his brother's eyes and forcing his muscles to bear the weight. Sasuke's eyes are closed, hiding the damage he's done to them. Blood crusts his eyelashes, is smeared on his cheeks. He sliced a straight line right across his eyes. Itachi can estimate how deep it is by the bridge of his nose. The blood has clotted. It doesn't look like the kunai cut too deep. But Itachi doubts his eyes have survived. This is all my fault. A rush of guilt hits him, but he forces it away. This isn't the time or place for it. He pushes off the branch again, continuing forward. He ignores the pain shooting through his eye, the numbness of his arms, pushes past the heavy exhaustion that tries to drag him to the ground. He tucks Sasuke's head securely beneath his chin, feels his unsteady breath against his throat, and rushes to catch up with Kakashi. Hold on, Sasuke. Itachi catches up with his former Umbu captain, by some miracle. They cross into the land of fire, and abandon the trees for the ground. Will you be able to make it the rest of the way? Kakashi asks. Itachi hefts Sasuke up as his body begins to slip, wincing as the movement pulls at his wounds. I'll manage. I sent a crow out earlier, so the Hokage knows we're coming. Good. Hopefully we won't have to deal with being stopped at the gate. Itachi doesn't know what to expect when he reaches Konoha. Hopefully Kakashi is right, and they don't lock him in irons the moment he's spotted. Tsunade might know the truth now, but she's the only one who does. His status as an international criminal hasn't changed. And Itachi doesn't know how much the two of them know. Kakashi's talk with him earlier made it clear to him that while they may know the truth behind the massacre, they still didn't have the whole story. If the Godame decides to lock him back in a cell, Itachi won't resist. He's dead to the Akatsuki now. All of his plans are reduced to nothing. Kakashi's words ring in his head. You fucked up. The unconscious boy in his arms is a testament to just how much. The two of them don't speak again. The rest of the journey is completed in silence, rushing urgently to their destination. Itaka lets out a breath of relief when he spots Konoha's gates. The Godame is standing at the entrance, already waiting. She doesn't waste any time. Give him to me, she says, attempting to take Sasuke from his arms. Her eyes are cold. Itaka tightens his grip and stands firm. I have him. Tsunade's jaw tightens. I don't have time for this, Uchiha. I may know the truth, but you still have a lot to answer for. You're a member of the Akatsuki. I'm not letting you just walk up to the hospital with us. I'm drained of chakra, Itaka tells her. Even if I wanted to attack you, I wouldn't stand a chance. Tsunade bites her lip, considering. Fine, she says. But I'm binding your chakra anyway. Which means you still need to give me your brother. Itaka hesitates. Sasuke's breath at his neck is a reassurance that he is alive, and Itaka doesn't want to lose that. But reluctantly, he hands him over to Tsunade. She locks a pair of cuffs around Itaka's wrists, the same pair as before. They rush up to the hospital quickly. Tsunade grabs him by the back of his tattered cloak and shuns with him. Smart move. If any of the villagers see him, it could cause panic. They appear in a hospital room in front of two mednin. They yell in surprise. One of them drops her clipboard. Hokage-sama. Tsunade places Sasuke on a nearby hospital bed. One of you get me Shizuan, now. The other one prep a room. It takes the two mednins a moment to move. They stare, stunned, at the three unconscious genin. Then at Itaka, who probably makes a right sight with his bloodied Akatsuki cloak and bound hands. Now. Tsunade snaps. They scurry off. Your brother will live, Tsunade says, after taking a quick read of his chakra. Kakashi, put Sakura down. Kakashi lays the pink-haired girl down on the opposite bed, and settles Naruto into one of the cushioned chairs. He's scraped up, but unharmed. The girl. Tsunade has turned to her, her hands glowing green as she reads her vitals. Kakashi is talking, and Tsunade is answering, but their voices become background noise. Itaka's focus is Sasuke. He looks down at him, wincing at the deep slice across the bridge of his nose. It's probably going to scar. I'm so sorry. At some point, a young woman with dark hair comes by to roll Sasuke's injured teammate away. Tsunade's attention returns to Sasuke. Itaka backs up slightly. Tsunade lifts the boy's eyelids, wincing. He's completely sliced through his cornea, down to the pupil. His optic nerve hasn't been damaged, but with this level of injury, he'll be blind, Kakashi says. Yes. Itaka feels the knowledge sink like a stone in his stomach. Blind. Guilt hits him. He can't pinpoint the exact source of that guilt, because for once, he was not the direct cause of his brother's suffering, but he's sure it can be traced back to him somehow. If he had gotten there sooner, if he had killed Orochimaru when he had the chance, if he hadn't treated Sasuke like a pawn in a mapped-out game of shogi. There must be something you can do, Kakashi says. If you can't heal his eyes, then an eye transplant. Transplanting someone's eye is an extremely delicate procedure, Tsunade says. She gives a pointed glance to his slanted hitai. As you well know. You're saying you can't do it. I can, but... Give him my eyes, Itaka says. Tsunade and Kakashi both turn to look at him, stunned by his words. Kakashi's single eye has widened slightly, and he looks back to Tsunade. That would work, right? It would. Tsunade stares at Itaka with a narrow gaze. You would do that? Understand, if I give him your eyes. I understand what it means. He knows that doing this will rob him of his vision. He's prepared to live in darkness, if it means his little brother gets to keep the light. If this is the sacrifice he must make, then he will make it. He always planned to have Sasuke take his eyes, anyway, though he assumed he would already be dead when it happened. You're sure? Tsunade asks him. She's studying him closely, looking for some sign of deception. Some hidden motive. For the first time in years, Itaka doesn't have one. His plans are reduced to nothing, they are dust. Itaka looks down at his brother on the hospital bed, his deathly pale skin and the blood staining his face. His heart twists painfully. You fucked up, Kakashi told him in the forest. Looking down at Sasuke now, Itaki is hit with the sudden realization of how right the man was when he said that. Everything he did to his brother, everything he said. You're nothing to me. What was it all for? For this? Itaka swallows the memory down, his throat tight. After everything I did to him, this is the least I can do. Kakashi looks at him steadily, and there's a look on his face Itaka can't interpret. After a moment, it's gone. Your eyes are damaged, too, aren't they? He asks. So will giving Sasuke yours actually work? Itaka pauses as he considers the question. Sasuke doesn't have the Mangekyou, after all he probably won't develop the eternal Mangekyou with only an ordinary Sharingan. I'm not sure, he admits. Either way, better his eyesight be damaged than completely gone. He can't let his brother go blind. His life as a shinobi would be over. A voice in the back of Itaka's head reminds him he's giving up his own shinobi life by doing this. He ignores it. Tsunade watches him for a long moment searchingly. Very well, she says. I'll perform the surgery immediately. And afterwards, you're going to explain to me everything. Kakashi finds himself sitting in a chair in one of the empty hospital rooms. Somewhere down the hall, 2 surgeries are taking place. He waits. Naruto is still unconscious. His body is curled up in the small chair, and his head is leaning against Kakashi's shoulder. Kakashi makes a face when he spots drool. Gross. Naruto is mumbling. He's probably going to wake up soon. The genjutsu Kakashi used to put him to sleep was extremely weak. Kakashi drums his fingers against the wooden arm of the chair. He's exhausted from travel, but too restless and worried to allow himself to sleep. If the eye transplant doesn't work, if Sakura doesn't make it through surgery, Sasuke, at least, will live. But if he's blind, he'll have to give up his career as a ninja. He's worked so hard this past year on Team 7 and his Sharingan means so much to him. It's more than a jujutsu, it's a last link to his clan. And Sakura. Sakura has been affected by some sort of poison that attacks her chakra network. Shizune is trying to purge it from her system now, but it's still not certain she'll be able to. The poison isn't one Tsunade has seen before. If Sakura dies. Kakashi inhales shakily, pushing down on the fear. He can't stand waiting like this. He's going to drive himself crazy. Against his shoulder, Naruto shifts slightly. His head begins to slowly slip from Kakashi's shoulder, causing him to fall. Kakashi stops him, keeping him where he is. This is enough to wake him up. His eyebrows furrow, his eyes slowly blinking open. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto, Kakashi says as his student stirs. How are you feeling? Naruto frowns in confusion, lifting his head from Kakashi's shoulder. What's going on? What? He makes a disgusted face. Why does my mouth taste like blood? Kakashi winces and doesn't answer. He sees the moment Naruto's mind catches up with him, tiredness gone from his blue eyes, replaced by horror. Oh god, I ripped out his throat. Naruto lurches, face twisting. With amazing reflexes, Kakashi snags the waste basket from against the wall, placing it in front of Naruto just as he gets sick. Kakashi winces at the sound of retching. He rubs a hand down the kid's back as he vomits. You're okay, it's okay. He has a flash of memory of Minato doing the same for him, after he killed Rin. His voice echoes in his head, the feeling of gentle fingers in his hair. It's okay, Kakashi-kun, you'll be okay. When Naruto is done, Kakashi pulls a tissue from the box on the table beside them. He wipes his student's mouth, discarding the tissue into the bin. You good now? Naruto nods unsteadily, though he's still alarmingly pale. After a slight pause, Kakashi returns the basket to the wall. Sensei. Kakashi is unsure of how to proceed. Did you want some water? To wash your mouth out. Naruto looks slightly sick again, but he only nods. Why yes. Please. Kakashi stands up to make a quick trip to the bathroom. As he turns the handle of the faucet, he looks up into the mirror. His face is pale, his visible eye exhausted. There's mud smeared on his cheek, and he washes it off. When he returns, a cup of water in his hands, Naruto seems to have calmed down a bit. He takes the water and swishes it around in his mouth before spitting it back in the cup. Then he looks back to Kakashi. Sasuke and Sakura, are they? They're alive. Kakashi says. Naruto's face is overcome with relief, and Kakashi's mouth tightens. But Naruto, they're both in surgery. Sakura. Tsunade doesn't know if she's going to make it or not. The relief disappears immediately, replaced by fear. What? No, she has to make it. Kakashi doesn't know what to say. He can't assure Naruto that it will be okay. The fear on his face is the same that Kakashi is feeling. Sakura is strong, he says instead. Don't give up on her. She's fighting right now to pull through. Naruto bites his lip. And Sasuke? His eyes. Itachi volunteered to give him his eyes. Tsunade is performing the transplant now. Naruto's head snaps up in shock. He did. Naruto's surprise is echoed by Kakashi's own. Despite being one of the few who now knows the truth, it still stunned him when Itachi offered up his eyes. In the bingo book, Itachi Uchiha is known as Itachi of the Sharingan. He's skilled in almost all areas, but it's his talent in genjutsu that makes him truly renowned. Those eyes are extremely valuable to him. And it's not just his visual prowess he's giving up. It's his sight. Without his eyes, his life as a shinobi is as good as over. Why would he do that? Naruto asks. The blonde shakes his head. Why were you even with him? He made the Kyuubi go away, why would he do that? Kakashi should have anticipated these questions. But he was so preoccupied by his wounded students, he didn't come up with any plausible explanations. There are things with Itachi that I can't tell you, he says honestly. Things that only recently came to light. But he isn't going to hurt Sasuke again. Naruto frowns. But Naruto, I can't tell you. Naruto makes a faint noise of frustration, but the steel in Kakashi's tone convinces him to drop the subject. He bites his bottom lip, pulling his legs up onto the chair so he can wrap his arms around him. What do we do now? He asks. We wait. Naruto glances down the hall. They'll be okay, he whispers, as if to convince himself. Kakashi forces a smile. I'm sure they will be. Naruto's head drops onto Kakashi's shoulder. Together, the two of them wait. Check the description for the links to the author.